And on to debate number 2, viewers. Amidst intensifying ground fighting between Israeli forces and Hamas fighters, Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, is facing acute shortage of fuel and medical supplies. The WHO has confirmed that the hospital is no longer operational due to power shortage. The director of the hospital has claimed that babies and other patients are dying in the hospital, but who's responsible for all this? IDF claims that it had supplied 300 liters of fuel for urgent medical need of Al-Shifa, but Hamas prevented the hospital from taking the fuel supply. IDF has released a video showing its personnel dropping fuel cans near a building that it says is Al-Shifa Hospital. IDF also released a recording of a phone call that it claims is between Israeli officials and Al-Shifa Hospital's manager.
حتى اللحظة دي في مشكلة بس في الشفا طور قريبا.
شو السيرة؟
يعني بديش الكمية بنحاول نقنع فيه.
IDF maintains that it is doing everything possible to ensure that there is minimal harm to civilians amidst the ongoing operation.
The IDF has repeatedly stated, our war is with Hamas, not with the people of Gaza. We're doing everything we can to mitigate harm to civilians and increase humanitarian aid. We've employed tactical pauses in specific areas of northern Gaza in an additional effort to facilitate the safe, temporary evacuation of civilians southward. We've also been encouraging the evacuation of patients treated in hospitals used by Hamas as terrorist bases.
In light of the ongoing hostilities, the IDF has repeatedly called for the evacuation of Gaza residents from northern Gaza, especially the Shifa, Rantisi and Nasser hospitals. IDF claims that it has created a safe passage for civilians willing to go into the hospital and those trying to leave hospitals and move to the southern part. Listen into this conversation as an officer in Israel's Coordination and Liaison Administration informs the manager of Shifa Hospital about evacuation passages from the hospital.
أي واحد إذا بده يتخرج من المستشفى وللمستشفى شارع الوحدة من الجانب الشرقي تاع المستشفى مفتوح. ما في قوات جيش في كل الجانب الشرقي من المستشفى. القوات تبع جيش الدفاع الإسرائيلي مش موجودين في شارع الوحدة.
هو مش موجودين في شارع الوحدة بس في الطيران موجود.
لا مش من عندنا. أي واحد بده يتخرج وحور بدون أي مشكلة.
تمام. سيارات الإسعاف مسموح تطلع وتنزل برضه نفس الكلام؟
ما في أي مشكلة من مرة. أي سيارة إسعاف بدها تتخرج من شارع الوحدة ما في أي مشكلة.
تمام أوكي تمام.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And for more on this, let's go across to our guest. Joining us, we have with us Major General David Sur, former commander of the Counter-Terror Unit and General of the Border Police, joining us live. We also have with us is Ibrahim Abu Ahmed, Director of Alumni Relations at ROPES, as well as a peace activist. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And before we get into the debate, I understand these are extremely emotive issues. I will allow both of you to speak, but let's go about this debate in a calm and composed manner. Let me start with you first, Major General Sur. What's being alleged is, or being reported rather, from Gaza is that premature babies at Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, being wrapped in foil, placed next to hot water in a desperate bid to keep them alive as the firepower continues from the Israeli side, pounding the streets and the remaining fuel reserves dry up, raising some serious questions about what kind of a situation it is. Of course, the humanitarian crisis is one larger aspect, but at the moment, at least, questions about how those in hospitals are perhaps in a position where they may even lose their lives if nothing is done urgently. How do you look at this, Major General David Sur?
Well, I think the facts are that Israel is giving a humanitarian corridor to anyone who wants to go south from Gaza, from the north, including giving windows of time to evacuate those hospitals, which we know definitely that they are being held as a shelter at least below the hospitals and some of the places in the hospitals by Hamas terrorists. We have to remind the people how everything started. I mean, we hold the ceasefire on the 6th of October. and nothing was supposed to happen. And in the 7th of October, this savage attack, the invasion of the South, and butchering, hijacking. We have more than 240 hostages are being held by the Hamas. Babies were beheaded. Women were raped in a festival, in the Nova Festival. So Israel is in a war with the Hamas.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's a very, very crowded urban area. Last night, we supply more than 300 liters of gasoline for the hospital. But we know that the Hamas is forcing them not to take it. So it's not surprising. So we have to maneuver with the military necessary to keep going and hitting the Hamas, right, and to this corridor of a humanitarian corridor that we are supplying.
Okay, Major General Sur, I got your point. Let me put that question across to Ibrahim Abu Ahmad. Ibrahim Abu Ahmad, this is what Israel is saying. Israel is saying we are ready to provide fuel even up to 300 liters. An offer has been made, but it is Hamas that is preventing the hospital from accepting that. How do you look at this?
I mean, I'm looking at it as, the situation obviously is a dire one, and I think the discussion sometimes is losing the track over, we're discussing somewhat of a morality question in order to find out, the world and the media in the world discussing the situation of how can I justify that I am supportive of one side over the other? How is my position is going to be strengthened by one side being the one that is okay and the other one not being okay? And I think the problem starts with this discussion of, trying to put the blame on one of the two sides and basically creating a black and white image. And I think this is exactly where the problem starts.
Not also, in fact, we want to represent both the sides. That's why we have both of you representing both points of view. I'm certainly not taking a position today. You're more than free to put across your points of view as long as they're factually backed up. Please go to.
I'm saying the discussion in general in the media has been to one over the other, and that's precisely the problem. And as my colleague mentioned about the problem starting on October 7th, obviously this particular war started on October 7th. But the problem didn't start on October 7th. The problem we had for a very long time. Israel went to 3 military operations so far before this war. Why wasn't Hamas dismantled then? Why was Hamas allowed as a terrorist organization to run Gaza, to rule 2 million Palestinians, and basically create the biggest recruitment camp in the world for its terror organization? Okay. As long as these people live away far from us, they can be recruited, and they're, we as Israel can handle a situation where we have a couple of rockets every few months. And this terror organization is far from us. Once in a while, we have to deal with it. And a reality of so-called peace. And that's a fake reality that exploded on October 7th. Again, as my colleague mentioned, the party was held a few meters from the border. There was a fake sense that there is peace. And the problem didn't start on October 7th. And we need to solve the problem that started before that. And not only to solve the problem of this conflict. It's not about, ceasefire now or Israel needs to occupy Gaza. It's about solving everything, because otherwise we'll go back to the same scenario in different ways. Right.
Ibrahim Abu Ahmad, the point is ultimately if women, children, elderly are killed anywhere, whether it is Gaza, the whole reason we are discussing this is what I started with the point of babies, but if babies are beheaded this side as well, there is a problem. And this is why this entire issue evokes, passions globally. But I want to come back to the point that we are on debate right now. Of course, this is a larger question that you have raised. And let me get into the specifics. And I want to put this question to Major General David Sur. Major General Sur, while Israel has blamed Hamas for the denying of fuel, the Al-Shifa director, Mohammed Abu Salmiya, has contested Israeli claims and said that I told them, if you want to help, I need at least 8,000 liters to run the main generators and save hundreds of patients and injured. They refused and we no longer have any idea. This is something that the health department also confirms, saying that 300 liters perhaps would only power half an hour to 1 hour of the hospital's requirements. How do you respond to that? Because they are saying the offer made itself was so inadequate.
Well, I didn't get the full question, but I don't want to even go into those details because, as I'm telling you, Israel now is in a war. In a war, we don't need to supply nothing. For decades, Israel has been held like a responsibility for Gaza. I want to remind you, we left Gaza in 2005. Totally, there is no one Jew or Israeli in Gaza. There is on the contrary, Israel let the Palestinian from Gaza, like more than 20,000 people coming, working, and unfortunately, especially those villages, kibbutzim, moshavim, close to the border, were the most peaceful people, which are giving the Palestinian the labor to come and to work. They are most of them the peaceful peace organizations holding peace views against the government, the ultra-right government, and they were the first to be butchered, raped, and burned alive. This is disgrace. I mean, if my colleague is holding Hamas as the representative of the Palestinian issue, because I can discuss with you for the long history, and you know, I was also MP, and I was in a party which was holding the views for the two-state solution, and we pushed for that. So we don't have, as you said before, we are not being judged because we thought it's a peace. We know Hamas is a terror organization. We don't want to control the Palestinian people. We don't want to choose the leadership of the Palestinian people. I met with Abbas, Abu Mazen, twice, and we went and give every time when there is a chance, window of opportunity for a peace agreement, Israel was there. Unfortunately, all of the times, if we will leave our weapon today, we were being slaughtered. If the Palestinian or Hamas will leave the weapon today, there's going to be peace.
Okay.
So this is the main difference between us and, unfortunately, your people.
Right. In fact, that raises the question once again, Ibrahim Abu Ahmad, the factor that he raised about how those who were butchered were actually people who were peaceful. They were not part of any security agency. They were just common citizens. And of course, that's the same problem with those who are hospitalized. If the argument is that those who are hospitalized are just innocent citizens, then it's also innocent citizens who've been targeted here, is his point of view. But let me ask you the question that Israel repeatedly raises.
I have to correct you because they are not being targeted. In the contrary, we are letting them to go out. We're doing our best not to bomb in-purpose civilians.
Okay.
Unfortunately, in the 7th of October, when they went into the houses, they burned live babies, women, in purpose hitting the civilians.
Okay.
This is the main difference.
That's my question. That's my question to Ibrahim. And Ibrahim, the point being made over here is this, and also the fact that Hamas is using human shields. That's a point that has been repeatedly made by Israel. I want you to respond to both those counts.
I mean, first of all, I don't understand the argument over here because anyone who discusses peace, anyone who discusses humanity, and I think this is a big problem of what we're seeing in the world in discussing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is that people are looking at only their people as humane and, demonizing the other side. Obviously, those were innocent people who were brutally murdered on October 7th. Listen, if we want to continue the discussion after I tell you that Hamas is a terrorist organization, by all means, because Hamas is a terror organization. And to my colleague's question, no, I don't think they represent the Palestinian people whatsoever. But Israel pulled out, it pulled out unilaterally out of Gaza, which was part of the problem, not with agreements. That was also part of the issue. And we need real leadership in the West, a real Palestinian Authority that actually is willing to work for its people. The only problem is that so far, most of the time, both sides were not interested in two states. If we're looking at the last 12 years of Netanyahu's rule, he definitely wasn't interested in two-side states. Hamas was very convenient. If we mention the issue of why Hamas continued to exist, it was very comfortable for Netanyahu to continue expansion of settlements in the West Bank and disregarding any discussion of a political solution. Why? Because there is a terror organization in Gaza. I cannot discuss with it. In the same time, the Palestinian Authority definitely wasn't looking for solutions, and Israel can make a difference in that regard. And I differ the opinion on that because the Palestinian Authority also is comfortable with the situation it's in. It's just what it is. They have support, they get the money, and none of the responsibility. If anything happens in the West Bank, you can always say, "I'm sorry, we are under occupation." That's what you say to the people. But the PA itself has a more comfortable lives. And where is the responsibility of the world, the international community that is supporting the PA, to bring support to the PA with a real governance and not a corrupt one that we have today? So there is a role to change the PA, and everyone needs to play a role in that. But if Israel is comfortable with the PA that is operating in this way, that's also part of the problem. To lead us to where we are today, everyone made mistakes. And absolutely, we as a Palestinian people have also made mistakes. And we reached the position that the only voice that we hear right now of the Palestinian people is a voice of a terror group. That for me doesn't represent anything at all of what a Palestinian should mean. A Palestinian is a peoplehood, not a political movement, and not a terror group.
All right, that's I would say a very different view from what we've heard other people who are speaking up for Palestine, and I appreciate your candidness there, Ibrahim. I would just go across to Major General Sur in 1 minute. Would you then say, but Ibrahim, let me ask you this. You know, there is the Red Cross, which for instance has spoken, and they have said that, you know, in the situation that Al-Shifa is right now, in that context, this is very relevant. They say that hospitals can lose their protections if combatants use them to hide fighters, store weapons. This is what the International Committee of the Red Cross has said. Nonetheless, there must be plenty of warning before attacks to allow for safe evacuation of patients and medical workers. This is what the IRCRC legal officer Cordula Dridge has said. I'm quoting from an interview. How do you stand on that? Because it's a very difficult question, no doubt. On the one hand, there is the humanitarian condition of those who are just innocent patients going to the hospital for their treatment. On the other hand, there is a very serious charge, and Israel has said this time and again, that these hospitals are actually being used by Hamas as safe spaces. In fact, they allege even a headquarter of Hamas in one of the hospitals. How do you look at this aspect, Ibrahim?
Well, you know, we are taking, you're asking me?
Yeah, I want Ibrahim to respond, and then I'm coming to you, sir, on that point. General Sur, just a minute. I want Ibrahim to respond first, please, and then I'm coming to you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You know, any use of innocent lives for the purpose of putting them as a human shield is despicable. And, you know, we don't need the alleged whether or not there are bombs or rockets under the hospitals to hear some of the leadership that is outside of Gaza that is already publicly stated, and they were asked about the tunnels and whether or not why, and it's a real question. With all the tunnels that were created till today, why not even a single one was made as a civilian evacuation in times of war? If you're looking as a militant group to fight, you're supposed to have one exit, I guess, for your civilian population. But they clearly stated, "Oh, it's not our responsibility. It's the responsibility of Israel and the international community." I'm sorry, an organization that puts its own civilians and not his responsibility cannot represent those people, in my opinion, and that's part of the problem. Absolutely, that they're using our people is part of the problem. That they use even the Palestinian cause is part of the problem, because Hamas, at the end of the day, if you look at its agenda, it's beyond Palestinian autonomy. It doesn't have only nationalistic views. It expands beyond that on a religious basis. And that's not what the Palestinian nationality is.
Right. Would you agree with that, Major General Sur, that that's part of the problem, the Hamas Charter, for instance?
I fully agree with Ibrahim. Unfortunately, the voices that we're hearing now are totally different from and the Hamas became as the representative of the people. So unfortunately, even as I said, the moderate and the peace people in Israel losing faith in any kind of discussion now and talking. And I just want to say we have more than 240 hostages, babies from 10 months to 85, 86 years old. This is something which we will never accept. And again, we're trying our best not to harm and not to bomb any civilians, especially not the hospitals. And because of that, because we are a very moral military, so they holding them as a human shield. So I think if the Red Cross is so, and I think they have a role here, the first thing for them to do is to secure those people at the hospital, to evacuate them, and Israel is giving the humanitarian corridor for that, and to say what happening with our hostages, so we can go and discuss a deal, at least to finalize that. And for the long term, I hope people and new leadership like Ibrahim will come in front of the Palestinian, so we can have a different Palestinians to speak with. And I agree with them also about the PA, because it's a corrupted old, and they have to give the opportunity for a new generation, and maybe my kids and the Ibrahim leadership can maybe lead to something positive in this area.
Yeah, and Major Soor, I also want to ask you a question on the ceasefire, because internationally there are strong allies of Israel, such as France and United States, who are expressing their growing concern at the death toll in Gaza. More than 11,000 people have reportedly been killed, about 40% of them children, more than half of the population homeless. And without a ceasefire, there is a very real risk of more innocent civilians getting caught and becoming victims of this fighting.
We won't accept any ceasefire till we know what's happening with our hostages. Because you have to understand, any ceasefire now, it means that the Hamas is getting again prepared. So we are in a war. We won't accept any ceasefire unless there's going to be kind of a deal with the hostages. We can hold like a pause for a humanitarian corridor, for negotiation for the hostages, but not a ceasefire.
Ibrahim, your response to that, do you agree that there's no scope for a ceasefire until the hostages are returned? Do you think that's a fair point of view?
I'm no military expert like my colleague here who has years of experience in that scenario, but from what I've seen, as my humble point of view, is that the way that the military has acted so far has been it really looked from an outside point of view as act of vengeance, as just trying to show that we are strong. We were hit, our pride was hit, and we need to show the other side that we are the stronger ones in this neighborhood. And unfortunately, and it is unfortunate because I know some people, friends who have family who are hostage or have been killed as well on October 7. And what I see is that the military is looking at them as collateral damage at the moment. The target number one is to destroy Hamas's military capabilities, no matter the cost. That's what it looks like. And I don't understand how by going all out we will be able to free those innocent people. I really can't. We don't make ceasefire with our friends. Neither, Israel wants to put the ceasefire when we are supposedly on the stronger side of the battle, but I'm not sure what exactly that entails.
Well, there are no easy answers. It's certainly a very complex situation, and while Israel says that it wants to end Hamas once and for all so that there are no further attacks, the fact is that with over 11,000 casualties, this is becoming a matter of concern globally. And certainly, of course, there are multiple points of view that are being expressed. We certainly hope that peace prevails at the earliest in the entire region. Ibrahim Abu Ahmad, as well as Major General David Soor, I'd like to thank both of you for joining us this evening on Times Now.
Thank you.